Hey, it's great to see you guys.
Well, I just want to know something. Did you read the Anonymous Patriots article on the, what did we call it? Manifesto for Human Thought, or whatever it was called, the machine thinking versus human thinking?
That was the one you did a video on?
Oh, so I did a video on it?
Yes, I did, but quickly. I would not.
Okay, well, what we came up with was very clear. Did research for months and months, actually for the last year, and can't find anybody being intelligent, hardly at all, when it comes to why it is that no matter what the technology is, it takes over people and they have to have it.
Right.
That's an illness, folks. But it's worse than an illness. We believe that it's actually certain types of, you could almost call them beings, entities, who literally wish to take from humanity their own human thinking, because that machine thinking, as we have talked about, when you hold a phone in your hand, you're looking at the creative work of millions of hours of probably millions of programmers. I mean, you can't even comprehend it.
It's true.
You are an ungrateful pig when you are using that iPhone and you don't realize that it is a miraculous man-made device that has more power than you can even conceive of.
Right.
And if you're not thankful for that, it eats you. And that's why it hypnotizes people, because it is the collective consciousness of all of those humans tricking you, thinking that you have something to do with it.
Right. You've taken responsibility for something that's not yours.
Yeah. Because you can push a button.
Taking possession, I should say.
You think you deserve it.
Right.
And then the thing, my thing about, omniscience. It makes you feel like you're omniscient.
Right.
Omnipotent.
No, it's
and
really
omnipresent.
True. I mean, look at the way whenever any subject comes up that you need information on, somebody Googles it.
Instantaneously.
Because they can't stand not knowing immediately what happened. That's quite a power.
And they don't believe a word you say until they check it on their phone.
That's true.
Not a word.
Remember the old days when you would have to pull out the dictionary and check a Scrabble word? Or whatever? Now it's just all Googling. And what I've noticed in my kids is they're starting to make a rule you can't Google when you're playing a game.
Yes.
Among your friends, which is interesting development. But I think that what I took away from listening to you say that on video is this issue of the spiritual battle that's going on in this world. And for me, being a Christian, I believe that because the Bible talks about it, and I've actually experienced that challenges of evil in the things I've done. And what came to mind when I first heard you talk about that was the scripture in the New Testament where it says the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And that devouring is what I think you're talking about, and everyone can see it now. I mean, I think more and more people can see it. And there's actually a new British documentary that actually analyzes the effect that social media is having on especially the younger children. They're talking about people our age not really being affected by it that much. We see it as what it is. It's a tool. We communicate with it. We don't really get into it. But those that were born digital are the ones that are really having the mental illness issues that this documentary was talking about. And I'm hoping that Betsy will post that in the next few days because it's quite well done. And it's coming from Britain, where they are starting to realize that something is horribly amiss in this technology that everyone is invited into their lives.
In your and my age, it was that we were addicted to staring into a cathode ray tube that caused you to go colorblind, and because a TV is made up of a whole bunch of spots,
right?
There's no lines. There's no definition on anything.
Red, green, blue.
And
if you look up close, you just see the triangle of the three spots.
And an illness was created in children. And that illness is they can sit down, take a pencil, and I saw this many, 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 many times as a principal, and I found it to be bizarre that they can set a pencil down and draw the outline of any of their cartoon characters almost perfectly. And we started studying this. Now, mind you, even when I was in the National Security Agency, we studied the refresh rate of every screen. Because if you refresh your screen in those days with a cathode ray tube, it could send you into a convulsion if it was the wrong refresh rate.
Yeah, in the film world, I think it was 22 frames a second. It had to go faster than that so your eye would not see the transition between the frames. I think it was 22. It may have been another number, but it was close to that.
That's why in the old computers, when you're on TV and they show a computer, it shows that line that goes up. They show multiple lines that slowly go up the screen.
Right.
That's the refresh rate.
Right.
If you don't do it at 60 hertz or 60 times a second, you can send certain children into seizures if you do it too slow or too fast. This is well known. This was researched.
That refresh rate doesn't apply to just general web pages. It only applies to video.
Correct.
Where the frames are changing.
Yes. And in the early days, my analogy here is you and I, we were attacked by the television, and we lived for the television. We knew what time Lost in Space came on, what night, and by golly, you were sitting in front of that TV in advance of it being,
Hey, first show I saw in color was Batman. Remember the ones that went pow?
Yes,
Zam,
it was shocking to see it in color.
Right.
We remember it in black and white, where it absolutely made you blind, colorblind, gave you illnesses, and everyone knew it. So they said, we got to get rid of cathode rays, so they went to LED, and now we probably have some, well, there is, but we can get into that too. You take red and blue LED at a certain frequency and you go into seizures.
Right. They can still control the flashing effect, but it doesn't need to be flashing when it's the actual computer projecting it onto the screen, unless they want to control your reaction, which is what they in fact are doing. We now know that these apps are doing that with children in order to send them into a catatonic state so they will not get off of the app.
Sorry, folks, what he just said is true. It has been weaponized against your children.
Right.
And that is on purpose.
Now, most people will ask, why? Why would they weaponize it against my children? I think you know the answer, so I'm just going to leave.
No, you don't say it.
They want to kill them.
And commercialize them. First, they want to take any money they have as a money stream.
Right.
Shorten their life, sell them the fear of life insurance policy, car insurance policy, tax them to death for wars that they didn't even know existed in places they've never been and in times that they didn't even live. We're still paying off the debt of previous wars. I mean, these poor people who are born into this age, I don't know how anybody has the discernment to figure any of this out. Now, my analogy.
Solution there, get rid of the Fed, right?
Well,
so we move on.
That is a good start. We have the 12 steps. As soon as Trump completes them, he's already started all 12, we will have our republic back. But the point is that this analogy to me is very powerful because I studied this as hard as I could, and I couldn't come up with an answer. And I came across the most bizarre phenomena. And because we are struggling with beings, principalities.
Mm-hmm.
These
principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places.
Thank you. Exactly. That's who we're struggling with.
That's from the scriptures.
This is not a joke. And so when you look at technology, it used to be it would attack you and hypnotize you. Now, no. You're looking at an LED screen. You go into it. Mm. And then you have to have, and I don't know all the technology, better and better definition until the point it seems as if you can walk onto that screen.
Yeah, you are the environment that you're watching.
You also have full-size screens where the people are full-size.
This British documentary talks about that and actually proves it.
You can literally walk up to a screen and the characters are the size of you. Mm-hmm. Okay? I've seen this in people's homes. You can't hardly tell that it looks like you can take a step and walk into that screen.
Right.
So the virtual reality is not just putting on those headsets that just show you the virtuality world, which one time someone put those on me, and I was convinced I was there, man. I was there. Now, this was a very good headset. It's the top of the line, and newest version. But it was real. And I knew that it was fake in my mind, but there's no way that my nerves and my perception could have not believed it wasn't real. So that's what we're getting ready to be drawn into. Instead of now, the propaganda and the control mechanism for the isms, the government isms, whether it be capitalism, corporatism, commercialism, communism, fascism, democratism, socialism, which might as well, that's where I was headed is, when you say Democrats, you have to say socialist, and you almost have to say now leftist, fascist. So why is that happening? That we are being pulled into this device, these devices, our children are being lost in them. There are schools look, my children go to high school, and they can either be given a cheap little laptop, what's it called, a web book or what, netbook, iPad, or they can use their smartphone, and they type with their thumbs, and they type as fast as I do. I don't even believe it when I watch it. We are creating a whole new subspecies that is not human, who is enslaved to the machine. That is not what you intended with your social media invention. It was to liberate people, not to enslave them.
Right. Yeah, there's certain things that occurred after the theft that really moved it very quickly, and you could see their agenda. After they stole one of the things we did not do intentionally was we did not have things popping up and flashing on the screen to interrupt people every second. And the first place we noticed that was in instant messaging. Everything was current, and it was so whatever you were working on, this thing would pop up and distract you, and then it would do it many times a minute. Well, there's long research that proves if in the old days before computers, people were interrupted once every 5 minutes in an office environment, and then it took them another 3 minutes to get back into what they were working on before they got interrupted. That's an old statistic, well proven. And I knew that, and so what we did in the design of the technology, we said, well, we can't put a system in front of people that's going to interrupt them more than what happens normally in an office. So all of that stuff, if it was available as a feature, was buried about 2 or 3 layers deep, so that you had to consciously go there if you wanted to have that feature set. So it was there, but it was buried. And so what you had on the screen was a static screen that gave you the information you were looking for. That was the design. But what had happened immediately when the IBM Eclipse Foundation hijacked the technology is they immediately put that tool that Lotus Notes introduced called Groove. And that they then embedded in Microsoft Outlook. And so then Outlook started notifying you every time you got a message. And so if we go back to the statistic about if it takes you 3 minutes to get back into what you were doing before you got interrupted, and you get interrupted by Groove coming through Outlook every 5 seconds or 10 seconds every time you get a message in a large corporation, which can be that often, then what you're saying is you've taken that person's productivity from 30% loss to 100% lost. They're basically interrupted all the time.
I love your engineering mind, because it's exactly the perfect model of human thinking and machine thinking. Going faster is better. No, it's not. It interrupts human thinking.
Right.
Perfect example. And that's what the manifesto was about. It was about we need to take a stand, not even against machines, but for human thinking before it's lost.
Right.
Before people can't think, they can't read a book, they have to see a video, they watch YouTube and whatever the next YouTube pops up. Why? Right. They can't think. Ask them what the last YouTube was, they can't remember. Why? Disturbances to their train of thought.
Here's another statistic. It's well known because Bell Labs actually did this study when they were trying to figure out how many telephone numbers do we want in our telephone numbering system that we could remember easily. And they did, up in Bell Labs in Illinois, they did long studies, and they determined that our mind is kind of broken into three levels: conscious, preconscious, and subconscious. And they found that the conscious mind could only deal with one thing at a time. The preconscious mind could deal with 7 plus or minus 3 things at one time easily without stress. And then the unconscious mind, or the subconscious mind, could handle multiple tasks at once without stress. Now, the stress was a key issue here. So we're looking at how do we have a system that can present information to you in such a way so that it doesn't create stress for you. And Bell Labs found that you weren't stressed if you had to remember 7 plus or minus 3 numbers in your telephone numbering. Okay, so that was the basis on which we designed the system so that there would never be more than 7 plus or minus 3 things being presented to you to look at, to get a grasp of, so that you could decide what you wanted to focus on. When these criminals stole our technology, turned all that off, put the Groove tool in it, the instant messaging tool, and then constant advertising barraging people, they completely blew away the long-known mechanisms by which our mind can work without stress. And so you talk about irresponsibility. It was inhuman irresponsibility at the very beginning of social media. They really did not care. It was obvious to me they didn't care about any of these things related to what a human can do, and it was all about what they wanted. They wanted to barrage people. They wanted to grab this. It seems to me they wanted to grab the culture, and they wanted to guide it like cattle being herded through a fence to slaughter.
Bing! You've got mail. Stop thinking.
That was when it happened.
You've got mail. Stop thinking.
Yep.
You've got mail. Come into this world.
Yep. Well,
this is a whole other world. Forget the other world.
I just got interrupted from whatever I was doing. Bing! You got mail. that was exactly.
I hate that.
Exactly. That was actually good compared to what it is now.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you get so interrupted now.
I mean, go to even an alt media website. How many ads are popping up now anymore? 4 or 5 ads all at once, and you're having to get rid of them all just so you can read the article.
Yeah.
We have succumbed to this inhuman approach to how information is presented to us as human beings.
And they do the studies because they're trying to control you. I used to do this with children, but it was just as a game. I would put, 20 some objects inside of a box, and I'd put a lid on it, and then I'd let each one of them walk up. I'd open the box, they'd get to look at it for X number of seconds. I forget, I looked at the research, and I was actually kind of researching to see really, what the deal was. And I'd let them look, and then I'd close it, and then they'd have to go sit down and write down as many objects as they could remember in it.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be 7 plus or minus 3, I guarantee you.
Yeah, the exact numbers you quoted. But then I would say, but how big was it and what color it was? And you know how many things they could only get? 3. Because your conscious mind can only actually take in 3 things. So what's on the page in the internet if they get a chance? 10 commercials.
Right. Yeah.
And one of them is going to have nakedness sticking in your face, male or female, doesn't matter. One of them is going to have outrageous aberrations of the human ego.
Yep.
Because you want to see the horns on the guy's head.
Yep.
One of them will be words to try to draw you into one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yep.
All 7 deadly sins are usually on the page at once.
Yep.
Okay?
Exactly.
And that's what it was meant for. It was meant to see if they could control you.
In my mind, these were all created by either ignorant and or immoral people who had no compunction to do things that satisfied them and had nothing to do with the needs of the people that they were creating it for.
You have described an Asperger's syndrome person, right? They love machines. They don't care about humans. They just want to be right. They think everything's kind of a twisted joke. And so for them to say, oh, I'm going to put the 7 deadly sins on every single page of, let's say, Facebook, well, guess what? They think that's a joke. That's a geek joke. These are people who have no empathy, and we now know that the longer a child is on a computer or iPad or a telephone, the less empathy they have, and they will be driven to literally aloneness,
Mm-hmm.
depression, and suicidal ideation, if not suicide itself.
Well, the interesting thing about that British documentary I was just telling you about is they identified that problem as narcissism. What they're seeing is this vast rise in narcissism among the digital children that were born into technology, and it's the same thing you're saying there. It's just all about me.
They look into the mirror of the magic pool, and what do they see? Themselves,
Right.
not the rest of the world. And so you go into the computer and you're a selfish person who lacks empathy, compassion, and you think that people online are real. Now, if you happen to know them, that's one thing, but sometimes you live in a whole world where the people that you're relating to, while you're in a room with other real people, are people you've never met, never will meet, and you don't even know if they're in fact real.
Well, what this author producer was emphasizing the fact that the rewards that have been created have created a situation where 80%. This is the statistic that they quote: 80% of all Instagram or text messages are selfies.
Yes, there you go, narcissism.
So what they've learned is they get more likes if they send a picture of themselves than if they send a picture of the place they're visiting or the food they're eating or whatever else they're doing. They don't get any rewards for that. So the whole mechanism that's been created here is designed to suck these kids into this unreal world. I think that from which there's no return unless there's repentance. But the guys that are pushing this are the sirens of this death of our culture.
And the social media groups, each one, the newer it is, the worse it gets, because it builds upon the information they got from the weaponized social media before. So you take what was the first one that we were first on that you got to communicate? And it's not Facebook, but there was a
it was CompuServe.
Yeah, there were things like that. Okay, and then you get to Facebook, and then you get to Twitter, and then you get to Instagram, and then you get to Snapchat. Now, my children use that, and they can tell where all their friends are because there's a locator device on it. So if they're part of the inner group, you know where all of your friends are at all times. But when you communicate, you don't even use words necessarily anymore. You simply take a picture, and when they get it, if they receive it, they only get to look at it for a few seconds until it supposedly disappears permanently.
Whoa. It
Wrong.
disappear.
It's not disappearing ever.
Yeah.
They're taking children's crazy sex shots of each other.
Right.
And I mean sex like young people have shown me these as this is common, where I've never gotten over what I saw, what they're sending each other, and there's no words with it.
No, those are all stored in their dark profile, and I guarantee you that at the right moment, those will reappear.
In the last few days, the reason I'm mentioning this is it was found out that the social media companies take these pictures of these children and they use them against them, and it's child porn. And now they've discovered an entire network where they've taken children's Snapchat and pictures that they send each other with no words that are supposed to disappear completely, so your parents can't catch you doing it, so the law can't catch you doing it. And what do they do with them? Turn it into child porn. Brand new news in the last few days.
Hillary supported Snapchat. She started making jokes about Snapchat when she got caught with her email server.
Well, she likes, it's rumored that she likes children for many different reasons. And so it doesn't surprise me at all, because they always go after the younger. The reason they go after the younger is because they think that it's some type of sacred ground, because they sense something special about children. Well, if you go back far enough with a child into the first days and even into the first 3 years of life, they have epithelial cells, stem cells. They had an umbilical cord. They had a placenta. These are amazing things that people can't even comprehend.
Wait, Douglas. I thought it was they're a human being made in the image and likeness of God.
That's the point.
And worthy of our respect.
And they're trying to steal that moment of even birth and everything in between, right up until the moment of birth. Afterwards, well, we don't like the baby. You know what they said? They said the woman gets to choose after the baby's born, once she bonds with the baby, whether she wants it aborted or not. That's the law. Unbelievable. We have reached the stage.
Well, I can't believe that there are more than a handful of people in this country that would go along with that. And what are we saying when we're letting this go on with... I think the reason we're not hearing any reaction is because of all the censorship. So the question is, we've got to get past that and start organizing.
This is machine thinking. You see, people can allow this because it crept. It's like Sharia creep that Betsy's always pointing out. It creeps, and it keeps creeping. Technology is creeped until there's no more empathy, so that once they get it out on the news and they tell everybody they're going to kill babies after they're born and call it abortion, it's okay. It's been diffused. Because why? The media said so.
Well, you know what? Given that fact, if every preacher in this country is not preaching against that next Sunday, then they are part of the devil's work here.
There's a lot of the devil's work. Unfortunately, some say we are born into our father the devil, and this is the devil's world. And that when you see spirit, it's eternal, and it doesn't really belong here. So, you know, we can see so much evil everywhere.
But I hear you, but the fact is I know a lot of people who are in church. They are preachers, and they care about people. I know they do. So the question is, why are they silent?
Well, I'm talking about the godless America, and you're talking about...
There is a large God-fearing America.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
These people have got to speak up, speak out, and be heard, and not allow the mainstream media to silence them.
Because our children are being offered up to the same Moloch that was part of the Babylonian culture and the culture of the Levant and other places, where they took children and they offered them up as human sacrifice. Remember, Abraham was going to kill his own son. Right? And God told him not to. Well, what was that about? That he was willing to sacrifice? It wasn't long ago that we were sacrificing children and humans, and we believed that their blood held some secret magic to it. And so we pointed this out in some of our intelligence reports. We're not farly evolved. We are not very far evolved from being cannibals. And when you look at some of the rituals, spiritual rituals we have, it literally involves images of eating the body and drinking the blood. You know, I mean, these are very serious mysteries. So when we're talking about Hillary Clinton eating the body of children, which it has been many times put forth by conspiracy theories that she's got that disease, what's it called? Kuru. If she really, or if anybody has Kuru because they're eating the body of children, and they say they eat children, that's exactly what they accused certain, what would we call it, Sabbatean sects of doing. And then therefore that came down to be blamed on the Jews and then the Khazarian Jews. And so to this very day, the Jews are accused of eating children and drinking their blood. Well, do we not in the Christian faith and Eucharist drink the body and blood of our Savior? I mean, you know, we are into
in a mystical fashion, not literally.
Well, no, Catholic Church are crazy enough.
No, I understand that. But
transubstantiation, they believe that becomes the body and blood, literally, of Jesus Christ. That was the old, but now that we got a pope that doesn't believe in anything Christian and has rewritten all the laws.
Well, I hear you, different. But that is a mystery. And both the Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church and all the traditions recognize that that's a mystery, that we're not literally eating his blood or drinking his blood and eating his flesh in the flesh, but it is a mystery that is being fulfilled on a daily basis. So I hear what you're saying, but I think your point is more along the lines of this idea is not new to our culture. And what we're seeing is a devolution of all of those ideas into this, where we're just eating our children now.
And drinking the body and blood of a Savior is human. It's like human thought. And it's basically trying to keep us human. I totally agree with you, and I completely believe in the mystery of the blood. We just wrote a book on it, and as you well know, and we love that. And that's where it's at. Matter of fact, the mystery of the blood is probably the most profound thing there is. But not long ago, most of the, well, let's say many cultures had these blood mysteries where they had to let blood, whether it's of animals, like the Jews, they let the blood of animals for the propitiation of their sins, so that they could be forgiven. And before that, there was human sacrifice in that very place in the Levant. And then we saw Moloch, and we now believe, and Mammon, this worship of money, of things, where you believe that sacrificing your child will get you a good harvest the next year. The whole Wicker King thing. People don't understand that the Celts, in modern times, their king was chosen as the first child born after the winter solstice, and that was made the king. They remained king as long as they had a good harvest. If they didn't have a good harvest, in the fall they were put into a wicker structure and burnt alive. And then the next child that was born was made the king if they were born on December 21st or December 22nd, whatever. And literally, if there wasn't a good harvest, they sacrificed that baby and chose the next one. This wasn't long ago.
It's not, well, it continues on today. A good friend of mine, a godfather to one of my daughters, is an Orthodox priest in Indonesia. And Indonesians, like 1,000 different islands, and they still have cannibalism in Indonesia.
Oh, yeah.
And he was describing for me visiting one of these cannibal tribes, and the things that went on there. It was amazing. But they still eat people there.
You're talking Father Dan?
Yeah.
Well, Father Dan was here at the house, and we saw miraculous things while he was here, because he's from Indonesia, and there miracles happen every day. He has miracles happening, and he has films of it. He's got, he'll take you to websites to show you things that you just go, whoa. I have seen films of people who traveled through Indonesia where they film things that cannot physically happen, we believe, according to science, where they can start fire with their hands, they can just do miraculous, amazing things.
Yeah, it's interesting talking to him, because those things to him are everyday experiences in Indonesia, but they aren't here. And so that's probably somewhat a function of our scientific rationalism that's developed in the West. We've rejected those ideas, and so therefore we don't look for them.
For the sake of electromagnetism, its many tools, and now the computers that rule our lives. In other words, mechanical thinking, machine thinking has taken over. He is a perfect example of animistic thinking and the power of the human mind. He showed us film after film after film of people taking.
These are online.
Remember the krishes that he had? I showed him my kris, which is a sacred Indonesian knife, and he goes, "Oh, you want to see some dancing krisses?" And I'm going, "What are you talking about?" These shamans make these knives dance in the air, and they have battles, and it's the most amazing. I didn't know this happened. Oh, common. This happens in his village. He put his village at the portal of a mountain, where all these spirits come in and out of the mountain, because he's Christian, and he's basically had to fight with them, and it became this gigantic battle for the animistic forces of the area, where he put his church. Okay, that's human. That's what a human can do. Transcendental human thinking goes into a realm that mechanical thinking can never arise to, realm of imagination, transcendentalism, creativism.
Yeah, and it seems that the earlier histories of the church dealt with that a lot more than the church does today in most parts of the world, except places like Indonesia. So the things that we think we understand as Westerners in a very secular, who are raised in a very secular environment, can only go so far to understand some of these spiritual principles that clearly transcend the physical world. I mean, and it's that's what's fascinating to me about listening to a lot of things you said about the way technology is eating people's minds. I had never really thought about it that way.
And their willpower and their feelings, their thinking, feeling, and willing is being eaten by the illusion of, in your thinking you're omniscient because you can use your phone and look up any fact you want, and then you're the right person in the room.
Right.
The last person to have accessed the internet is correct and is the omniscient, rightest, correct. Remember when you and I used to have to read books to become smart?
Or go to a library.
And remember things? Yeah. Holy Lord! Or let's say that I want to contact, the other day, I'm going to brag here for a second, but Betsy said that one of our things got put out and it got 750,000 hits. Whew! That gave me a dopamine rush because that made me think that those people cared about me and that I was somebody for a second, and then I realized, don't believe my own PR, and I don't believe nothing. I believe humans, okay? That was put out through machines. I don't know that those numbers are even real. Correct. I don't know if I'll ever meet those people. I love every single human at the end of our efforts to try to bring them truth. But on the other hand, I am not deluded by it. And I'm not much of a machine person, as you know. I was the cutting edge at the moment when computers were invented. I worked on unit record equipment. I understood how to write machine language. Mm-hmm. I wrote literally in zeros and ones and registers, and then wired those registers together.
One of the things that's happening today is that there are these layers that have developed on top of those early codes. And right now, people that are coming into programming now are not even programming at the level where all this heinousness is occurring. They're programming at another level above it. That's one thing that's coming out now. So that the kids that are coming into programming don't realize all of the things that they're developing that facilitate these weaponized functions that exist at a lower level. They don't even see them. They're compiled into the code and they don't even see it.
They're human. Those are humans who have become their code, who have totally adopted machine thinking, and they don't have any freedom to decide that the app that they're writing may be used
Correct.
To harm people or weaponized by the military to kill people.
Correct. They don't realize that there's a backdoor key into the code that they were using to create the code that they see, so that as soon as it's compiled together, it's completely hidden inside what they created, and therefore it's evil from inception.
I predict a digital Tower of Babylon, because what we are being told is that we're building the highest tower, digital tower, into the sky, up to where the divine is, and then we're going to have a super artificial intelligence to tell little humans what to do, because it can think faster than we can. It doesn't think at all. And because it can calculate faster than we can, which is true, but it uses machine language, so it will not be human. And what happened before in the story of the Bible, it was, of course, knocked down, and we were broken into languages. And so now the promise of super AI ruling the world, we have people who go to a church worshiping the coming of super AI. That's how pathetic machine thinking has gotten.
Yeah.
It just shocks me, looking at history, how fast this happened.
Well, and there, you got to look at Hollywood and movies, and BBC and the British film industry, which, as we have talked about earlier, really got their start in the around World War I, where they started figuring out that movies were the best way to put out propaganda and to get people to believe the lie. And so now we've got people who can't do anything else besides watch the next movie, and so it's gotten pretty easy for those that control the mechanism to push whatever agenda or whatever message they want, and that is generally not moral people, and that's my concern. Without the voice of the church, without the voice of moral people, honest people, and I don't care whether they're Christians or not, but I do care if they're moral. If they're moral people, Those are the people that need to be running our government. They need to be running our technologies, and not these people that we have empowered, which is basically bankers, evil psychiatrists, propagandists, and technologists who don't care where their next check comes from. And lawyers. We've got lawyers involved with there at every step of the way. So you take that group of people, those are the people that have defined the moral messages that we have had through movies, through media, through wireless, through technology for the last 100 years. We're seeing the end result of their vision of the world.
Absolutely. And so you pointed out, anytime there's high tech involved, immediately becomes propaganda, immediately becomes psychological control, immediately becomes how can we use this as a weaponized tool. And what we're talking about here tonight is the fact that that's machine language.
Right.
That's machine thinking. We need to get away from that. We need to get back to the human thinking and focus on humanity. We have yet to scratch the surface of what humanity is, what our oceans are, what our atmosphere is, and yet all we do is focus on smaller and smaller components going faster and faster. What is that? That is, as you pointed out, if you'd give us the quote, we should probably end this and go have a piece of cheesecake, or I need a cappuccino.
Beautiful.
I need a cappuccino. What's the quote? We do not fight against powers.
Principalities and powers, but spiritual wickedness in high places.